Now, today we are talking about 5 techniques that you can use to spice up your blues guitar solos, bring new and interesting flavors into the mix, revamp your kind of standard minor pentatonic licks, and do all of this without speed. So if you can't really play that fast, these are going to be perfect for you. That's the introduction. That's the introduction over and done with. Let's get into it. So, technique number 1, and we're going to be kind of working from easiest to most difficult. Obviously there's some, grey area there, but generally speaking, easier to most difficult, and we're going to be starting with double stops. Now, we're playing in the key of B using the B minor pentatonic scale, so playing B minor pentatonic scale, and most of this is going to be happening in the first shape. So even if you're kind of newer in your blues guitar journey, you can do a lot of this just focusing in that first pentatonic shape. So let's have a look at double stops. Nice and straightforward. What is a double stop? You're playing 2 notes from adjacent strings at the same time. Now there's a lot of theory that can be spoken about here, because which notes you choose and where you choose them are alternating the intervals that you're playing, and as a result, each double stop that you play is going to have a different sound and a different potential sound. But honestly, to begin with, I would just have fun taking 2 notes on different strings that exist within the minor pentatonic framework and playing them at the same time. So one of the classic, or 2 of the classic bluesy ones that appear all of the time in the first shape of the minor pentatonic scale would be 7 in the key of B, 7th fret on the G string, 7th fret on the B string. Play those 2 notes together. Little bit of vibrato on there. It's going to sound absolutely lovely. If we take then move up into our second shape, you're going to find another little great double stop here in the key of B minor, the 11th fret on the G string and the 10th fret on the B string. And we can actually add a little bit of movement into the mix there and sort of think about some sliding. And create some really little nice lines that connect from the first pentatonic shape into the second pentatonic shape. But you can apply this all over the fretboard. If we just stick in that first and second shape, for example, just take 2 of the top strings. You can literally just play around connecting ideas in that way, and immediately some new and cool and interesting stuff comes into the playing that doesn't happen when you just play single notes. So if you're not using double stops, give that a go. And even if you are using double stops, I would bet that you're probably using some of those classic ones. But probably not using some other ways of combining notes across strings in different positions. There is always more that we can get out of these ideas, so give that a go. Spicy technique number 2, we have our rakes. Now, I love these. They bring a little percussive pop into the playing. They just bring something new, and there are certain players. One of them is more typically bluesy. Rory Gallagher uses rakes a lot in his playing. Sounds awesome. And from a slightly less bluesy kind of background, Mark Knopfler uses a lot of rakes in his playing, and they sound really, really cool. Just think about that intro to Sultans of Swing. Played on a PRS. I told you this lesson was going to be a little bit spicy. So, what is a rake? Where can we use them? What's going on? A rake is, as the name suggests, where you take your picking hand and you sort of drag it, or rake it, see what I did there, across the strings to create this sort of percussive idea. You're not picking out each of the individual notes that you're playing, but instead you're sort of brushing across them, and you're doing this little dance between the 2 hands, where as you're moving, you're kind of then muting with the other hand. So you're not getting this sort of chord effect, but rather just the kind of a little bit of flavors coming through, but then it's just kind of cut down. So let's look at it in this first position, and then let's talk about a couple of extra positions where I think rakes can work really, really well. So in that first position in B minor, what I like to do is I like to start with my third finger on the 9th fret of the D string. And then you have your first finger kind of ready on that 7th fret of the G string, B string, and E string. And you're going to do this kind of, almost like a little roll. So the finger is going down as you're moving. And then with this hand, let me just do a little shimmy in my chair to get a better angle on the camera for you guys. And then with this hand, what you're doing is you're moving it down across the strings in a single motion. So it's not like picking, but it's rather sort of brushing. But then, rather than letting all the notes ring out, you're bringing that hand down with you and kind of muting and rolling at the same time. A little bit tricky to get to grips with, to be honest, and to actually kind of synchronize the two hands, but it sounds so nice, and it's a really elegant way of moving from one part of the scale to another. Sounds really, really nice. Now, the way that I like to use rakes is with sort of triad shapes that appear on the top 3 strings. So on the G, B, and E strings. So if we're playing in the key of B minor, you're going to have a minor triad here. Then you're going to have the next one here. And then you're going to have the next one here. So you can apply rakes on all of those ideas. You're kind of bringing out the sound of that triad, which is cool in and of itself. And it just has a really beautiful, cool, different flavor and different feel. Now, I play those examples quite quickly, but these sound really great slow as well. Not the rake. The rake has to be played with a certain level of speed. But everything aside from that can be played slow, so... So, very, very cool way of bringing extra flavour into the playing. Give that spicy technique number 2 a go. Okay, spicy technique number 3, and this is my favourite one because it builds on just a fundamental blues technique which I just cannot get enough of, and that is string bending. But there are a couple of ways that we can make our bends sound a little spicier. The first one is playing bigger bends. So often when we're in that kind of minor pentatonic framework, we're playing bends that move a single tone. So think about, you know... That makes total sense because what you're doing there is you're bending up to the next note from the minor pentatonic scale, which is one tone away. But within that minor pentatonic framework, we have 2 big opportunities for creating big bends which are more interesting. The first one of these is bending up the 5th interval of the scale up to the flat 7. So if we take, for example, let's go to, in the key of B, the 11th fret on the G string. That's the 5th interval from the scale. And the next note up from the scale is 3 frets away, so a tone and a half away. So if you want to hit that note, you've got to bend up 3 frets rather than 2. And just that extra movement already sounds interesting and has more flavour and a different vibe to it. Especially because, to make that sound good, you can't really hang around in the middle bit between the note and the bend that you're trying to bend, the pitch that you're trying to bend up to. If you do, it's going to sound like this. That's like spicy in all the wrong ways. So what you get is this very kind of intentional, forceful, like, boom. What's the word I'm looking for? You know, here I am. This is the bend. I'm making it happen. And it sounds amazing. So that's the first example. And wherever you find a note in the minor pentatonic scale where the next note up is 3 frets higher, so the 5th would be an example. The root would also be an example. you're going to be able to do that, and it's going to sound just awesome. So I did that in my opening solo, bending that note of B all the way up to the note of D, so that going from the 12th fret to the 15th fret. Sounds really, really, really cool. The other thing that you can do, and I did this in my opening solo, is if you take, there are a couple of notes that you can take from the scale, the flat third and the flat seventh. I did it off the flat third here. And you can bend that up a tone, and then let it come down, and in Dave Gilmour style, bend it up 2 tones. And it just sounds really cool. Different flavor. It sounds really intense as well. And again, speed doesn't come into it. Stamina is what comes into it, and strength really in the picking hand. It's quite tricky to do. And you can do that off the flat third. And also, if you want to, off the flat 7, so like in that first pentatonic shape. My fingers have failed me. I'm playing on 11s, so you might not be able to do this so easily depending on where you are on the fretboard and the strings that you're using, but you get the idea. Those are 2 positions where you can implement those bigger bends, and they're going to sound awesome. You can obviously approach this from a theoretical point of view, kind of as I have there, thinking about the intervals and where you're bending up to, which is going to be kind of one approach. Or you can just let your ear guide you and just kind of listen out to where you're bending to, what's going on. Technically speaking, in that Dave Gilmour example, you're actually bending a little bit outside the minor pentatonic framework, but that's for another day. It sounds awesome. Let your ear guide you. Try this out all over the fretboard, and you're going to create some awesome sounding bends. So that is spicy technique number 3. Spicy technique number 4. My second favorite, I would say, after those big bends, are unison bends. This is the only technique that I missed out of that opening solo. I was trying to jam everything in that I possibly could, recorded them all, and then when I watched back the footage, I realized that I'd missed the unison bends. There we go. No point crying over spilt milk. Anyway, unison bends. Let's have a quick look at them. Let's have a little look at why they sound so good and where you can play them. Now, what is a unison bend? A unison bend is kind of a bit of a variation on a double stop, really. You're taking 2 notes, again, in this case, from the minor pentatonic scale. You're playing them together, but then you are bending the note on the lower string in terms of pitch up to meet the note on the higher string, again in terms of pitch. So a great place to play a unison bend in a minor pentatonic framework, in that shape number 1, would be putting your first finger on the 7th fret, this is in B, so all these ideas are movable. Putting your first finger on the 7th fret of the B string, put your middle finger on the 8th fret of the G string, 3rd finger on the 9th fret of the G string, and when you play those 2 notes together, which are a double stop, you're going to get this. Okay, so a little bit spicy by itself, to be honest. But what you're going to get when you turn this into a unison bend is you're going to hear this kind of tension that then gets resolved when you hit the bend. I don't know why I put 11s on this guitar and make my life a misery when I'm doing all these bending examples, but there we go. There, you could hear that tension, and then when the bend goes up, it resolves. So you get this very, very cool sound. And you can apply it basically all over the fretboard within that pentatonic framework, as long as it kind of hits that criteria of the note that you're bending on the lower string is going to go up to meet the pitch of the upper string. So, for example, we could take that idea and we could put our first finger on the 7th fret of the E string, and then we could take, let's stick with the same kind of fingerings, you could put the your middle finger on the 9th fret of the B string, and then your 3rd finger on the 10th fret of the B string. You play those 2 notes together, and then bend up, so that lower note is matching the top one. So it's just a really, really cool way of just bringing a new flavor into it. And we can take that framework and actually do a couple of other cool things. The first one of this would be like what I call a deconstructed unison bend. So you take the static note, which you can't move, by the way. If that finger moves while the other one moves, then the tension is always there, and not necessarily in a kind of cool way. But If you take that static note and keep it static, and then you hit the bend, you can kind of do this thing where you're hitting the note, then bending, and returning or jumping between the note and the bend like that, and you get this very kind of cool interplay of tension. And then you can kind of throw some unison bends into the mix alongside that, and you kind of get the best of both worlds. Sounds really, really cool. It can be a little bit tricky to implement this technique in the beginning. So again, big piece of advice I always go back to: use your ear. If it sounds tense, then either you haven't gone up far enough with the bend to hit where you should be trying to go to, or the finger that should be static is moving all over the place and kind of stopping it from ever resolving. But give that a go. Initially in that first position, try and throw that into the mix, and then try and moving it around the fretboard. Experiment shifting it into different pentatonic positions, and you can create some really, really cool blues rock lines. It's a very British blues rock thing, like Eric Clapton from the 60s and Cream. It's pretty cool. So give that a go, and that is spicy technique number 4. Spicy technique number 5, and this for me is technically the most difficult, but we're all different, so maybe for you guys you're like, what the hell, why did he leave this one to number 5? The big bends were way harder, but I find this one quite hard. And this is tap bending. So this is where you hit a bend, and then on the same string, you tap a note and then go back into the bend. This one is actually quite rare. The two exact song examples that pop into my head where this happens would be number 1, John Mayer, I Guess I Just Feel Like, where he does something like this. And the Allman Brothers' Soul Shine, where you're going to hear something like this. But that's pretty much it. So this is a pretty cool opportunity to actually bring a new flavour in that not many other people are doing. And you just the Happy Bluesman gang are the ones putting this into the playing, which I think is pretty cool. So what are we doing here? Again, sticking in that first pentatonic shape, but you can test this out all over the fretboard. You're going to, on that G string, you're going to bend up the 9th fret on the G string. While the bend is still being played, you're going to take your fretting hand, pull it up and over, and I use my middle finger. I think that's the most comfortable one, but I don't know, you can use the third or the pinky if you're a real rogue person and you want to do that, but the middle finger is kind of nice and strong. You're then going to tap 3 frets higher than the note being bent, so in this case the 12th fret. Release the tap, so just bing, and then let the bend come down. Sounds awesome. And you can then resolve it in all sorts of other ways. And you can do the same thing on other notes that you might bend from the minor pentatonic scale. So if we go to the B string and bend that 10th fret, I told you I had some difficulties with this one. Let's go for a take 2. If we go and bend the 10th fret on the B string, and what happened there is I tried to do my first finger, so that was weird. So let me use my middle finger. Same thing, you go to the 13th fret, 3 frets higher than where you're bending, little tap, and then off you go. And you can do the same thing on the E string. The really, really cool thing about that is that you are adding an extra note alongside a bend, which a lot of guys do. So a lot of people will do stuff like, you know, hit a bend and like grab a note from another string, or... But in each of those cases, you're really hearing the other note being picked. When you're tapping, it's just like smoothness all the way through. So it sounds really, really just beautiful and cool and vocal and expressive. And it's not very common. So again, it's a nice way of just showing people, you know, this little different idea. And it makes you feel like a badass. So I'd highly recommend it. And there we go, guys. 5 spicy little techniques that you can use to throw into your playing to bring new life, new flavours into the minor pentatonic scale. All of this was basically done in the first and second shapes of that scale in the key of B minor, but you can shift this into different keys, different scales, all through the shapes of those scales. Try it out, give it a go, let me know how you get on. Good luck, and I will see you next time.